Welcome to the Flow State podcast. I am Flow State founder and managing director, Stuart P. Turner. In this 5-episode mini-series, we're talking about the implications of AI, cutting through the hype to talk about real-world use cases, real examples, and what it means to people in their day-to-day jobs. So, Lee, thank you for joining the show. It's awesome to have you on. So obviously you're the marketing manager at Don't Panic Events. I'm actually super excited to talk to you because you guys cover a huge array of industries and markets. So for the benefit of those people who may not have heard of you, can you give me a quick rundown of exactly what it is that Don't Panic does, and the breadth of the sort of scope of the events that you guys run?
Absolutely, Stu. So basically, we are a B2B events company and we specialize in awards events. So we just set up events that are based around people who have been in, the search, SEO, PPC, agency, company culture, the vast range of industries that they are in the digital space. And we basically set up awards nights for them, but it's a lot more than just that. I think the background of it is making sure that people just know that if they have a great campaign, if they have a great kind of product, tool, software, company culture, in-house initiative, that they can basically enter our awards and, have that kind of winning element to their agency or to their name or to their campaign. So that's basically what we set up, and we do it from inception all the way from getting people to download entry forms for particular events all the way down to judging and then selling tickets for the event and the actual gala event night. And we currently have around 30 events in our portfolio that we run throughout the year. So yeah, that's basically Don't Panic in a very small nutshell.
Wow, I like it. So just everything everywhere, basically. Yeah. I like it. And look, I think one of the interesting things in particular about obviously speaking to you is there's a kind of dual I guess purpose to the conversation, because I'm sure, as you know, as an agency fan stroke sort of person yourself, that AI potentially, if you believe the hype, is coming for many of our jobs, but also it's actually really interesting to see how it's actually going to be represented in the awards and how people are actually using it. So talk to me about, is this a Terminator type situation that we're in now? Like, are we all going to be usurped by machines, or is that just like hype and should we just all calm down?
Oh my gosh. I just feel like, everybody, as soon as it came out, as soon as your chat GPTs kind of came out, everyone started just really becoming stressed out. And
Yeah.
I'm speaking from experience, because I was just like, oh my gosh, why is this thing just right away without any form of kind of the long hour research that we kind of human beings put into it. I guess it was just that kind of worry in the beginning. I definitely know that from our content manager's point of view. I think she was really stressed out, really thinking, oh my gosh, this thing can just do hours worth of research in split seconds, and here I am, taking up company time. But I think from the time that ChatGPT did come out up until now, there's just so much more to it than worrying that it's gonna usurp your job or something like that. I think it's more that you can use it to your advantage. You can, kind of take back those hours in the day now, instead of, taking hours and hours to do research on something. It types you up whatever it is that you need, and you just have to do the fact checking basically behind it, which isn't as long as kind of doing the research, kind of putting pen to paper or fingers to notepad kind of thing. And now I would rather say it's more of an advantage than anything else. If you're not using it in your job role, if you're not kind of utilizing it as much as you can, that's when you should worry that your job's unsafe. Because I think everybody, whether you're a copywriter or not, whether you're a marketing manager or not, it's just so great to kind of use. The other night we were thinking about, we wanted to have like these place card holders on the table so people could discuss, little points of discussion. So if you're sitting with someone at your table that you don't know and you don't know how to start a conversation, we thought, okay, what could we do to create, little cards that basically are conversation starters,
Yeah, that's
and
cool.
we put it into ChatGPT. Our designer did it, and he's like, Lee, I understand none of these terms. I don't know what broad match is. I don't know what phrase match is. I don't know what it means for a competitor's ad to rank some. He's just like, please help me. And it was such a great, like, I
That's
started
cool. You're
laughing
like,
with him.
are
He's like,
these search words? What does this mean?
what does this mean? And he's honestly just a designer, didn't know what any of them meant. And when I sat there, I was like giggling myself away. And he's like, what does this even mean? I was like, great. Okay, this is what we do. We take what ChatGPT did, and we kind of work it around into the ones that are a bit more funnier, the ones that are kind of very much office based. And it was just such a great way to kind of use the tool for our advantage than sitting in a brainstorm meeting for about an hour to try and throw out words and throw out phrases that kind of work in the search industry. And something like that is just a great way to show that it's really great for people who are not even in the marketing space, who's more of a designer who doesn't know anything about search or SEO or PPC, to utilize it quite well. So
Yeah,
yeah,
right.
just a small example. So it's quite good to use for that.
Look, I think that's actually a really interesting example, which is come up a lot in a few conversations actually about the education side. And from reading a few bits as well, I'm sure you've been across this yourself. There's a bit of a
Yeah,
kind of a pro and con that seems to keep cropping up, which is obviously, it's great that you now have a tool at your fingertips that can teach you things. Like, it's, super even easier than just having Google there to find
yeah,
things, instead of having to fish around. You're like, oh, just tell me this, which I think is awesome. But the counterpoint to that, which I've been hearing quite a lot, is the concern about sort of the garbage in, garbage out problem, where a lot
of
of people
course.
in specific areas are slightly worried that it's giving you things that are inaccurate. I'm sure you've seen some of the stories about it, like making up references and sort of, as you said, the
Oh,
fact checking side's
absolutely.
not necessarily being
Yes.
there. Are you seeing any of that, either yourself or in the entries to the awards?
Not just yet into the entries, because do you know what we've decided to do? We've recently had the UK Dev Awards come up quite recently, and it's coming up for its 2024 cycle quite soon. And what we thought was we wanted to actually have categories, AI categories, into the awards, or the upcoming year's awards. But we actually took a step back and we thought, instead of rushing to make sure that we have AI categories into our awards where people are not ready, I don't think they're ready or have refined their tools or
Mm,
refined the kind of AI based tools that they're using. Instead of pushing a category in and then getting sort of submissions that aren't ready to go to market yet, or haven't been had the kind of market research that it needs, rather than pushing it to kind of go down the route of, let's just get people to enter into these awards and there's AI category for them, and trying to push it to go to market too quickly before people are even ready for it. Let's give it another year for people to actually do their market research, do the
mm,
testing, take the time that they need to actually perfect something that could be helpful, rather than just throwing something out. Oh, we've created an AI tool. Oh, there's a category in an award. We're just going to put it in because we know
yeah,
we're going to win, because there's such a small kind of nuance to it at the moment that
yeah,
you
yeah.
could win without any competition. So we thought we're going to actually put it on the back burner for the next year, so that we can hope that people actually take their time to do the research, fix any bugs, take their time to do kind of market research, and actually put out a tool that they're actually happy to win, that will gain some kind of competitors in the space. So yeah, I think, looking at kind of the AI tools that have also come up to counteract what's been done by ChatGPT. I mean, I've been reading on, students, creating their own essays and kind of thesis and dissertations through ChatGPT.
Mm,
And, as a human being, how would you spot that out unless you realize,
yeah,
oh, ChatGPT is quite repetitive? But if you're not a professor in this, if you're not someone who's using it quite constantly, like a marketeer, and you're a professor and you see this long, well-written essay, has a few references, and it could be passable, but how would you know that a student has actually written it? And I've just been reading about all a Harvard student in particular who created a non-chat GPT app that basically picks up if it's been written by AI. And I thought that's
Yeah,
quite
okay.
interesting to have done. Literally going against the curve. Everyone's going down the AI route of writing and kind of publishing novels and books and kind of essays and blog posts, where someone's decided, well, how do we know what's real and what's not? Because I think that's what sets human beings apart, isn't it? That we're so based in the art and kind of creative space. Do we really want AI to kind of take over that as well? It's a lot of conversation about it, and I guess it's just us deciding what we want to do with it, and what route we take with it. And yeah, it's actually just quite interesting to read everything at the moment that's coming out. And honestly, Stu, if I could tell you one thing, everything is about ChatGPT. Honestly, I log into
Yeah.
LinkedIn and it's just like everybody going on about it. It's
Yeah.
absolutely insane. It's
Yeah,
just
it's funny you say that actually, because I'm obviously spending a lot of time on LinkedIn myself, not
yeah.
necessarily by choice. I want to add, there is, it makes me want to like stab pencils into my hands reading some of the stuff on there at the moment. Well, like, I'm actually in there's quite a couple of amusing Reddit like threads that I'm in as well, where
Oh my gosh.
people are talking
Yes.
about like what was the best job title I saw was a prompt engineer that people are calling themselves now, and people were just like ripping out of this like job title where you're
Wow.
like,
Okay.
a prompt engineer is like not a thing. It's just you know how to type stuff into a chatbot. It's just asking it questions and telling it to do stuff.
Exactly that. It's basically
Yeah,
all of us going into Google every day and typing in what we're trying to get out of it. So I'm a prompt engineer, by the way. Don't
sorry,
please
no,
don't come for me.
didn't mean to. Yeah, didn't mean to cast any aspersions on anything you're doing there, Lee. But look, I think I've been probably quite offensively likening it to my friends when I talk to them about like when like little kids first they're learning about the world around them and
Oh,
they put everything in their mouth. Like
absolutely.
what is happening at the minute is
Absolutely.
everyone's at that phase where they're like, oh, can I do this with ChatGPT? It's like when you were a little kid
Yes.
and you were like, oh, look, a rock on the floor, I'll put it in my mouth, maybe that'll tell me about it. And you're like, we just need to kind of power through this phase, I think, and see if anything useful comes out the other side. But
Absolutely.
not
Yeah.
everything tastes good, I guess, is the takeaway. And there's only so many things you can learn by just eating stuff that you find on the floor,
Oh,
which you learn quite
of
quickly.
course. Yeah, and it is great that people are using it and trying to use it as well as they possibly could, but it's not always going to work for everybody. I mean, some of the times that I've gone into ChatGPT and kind of put in a prompt, it's come out with literal garbage, like very repetitive kind of content, or content that's basically repeated in a different way, or it's quite methodical in introduction,
Mm,
main paragraph, conclusion, whereas that's not the way kind of writing works at the moment. I mean, you can go off on a tangent if you wanted to. You can go and reference several other things in a blog post or an article that you're writing. I mean, it isn't as straightforward, or the structure isn't as always straightforward as introduction, middle, and end. Like that's the way
yeah,
that you learn it in sort of high school and primary school and things like that. So it's not the way that we kind of write in the modern world or the working
yeah,
world. So yeah, it's interesting to kind of take note of, I guess. But it's also taking what ChatGPT gives to you, or any kind of AI software, and working it for your own advantage, and not just using it as is. And I think that's the worst thing about LinkedIn, is that you can kind of pick up now after
but can you even
after the
pick a
last couple
worse
of
thing?
months. Yeah, it's like you can pick it up. So why don't you just take a little bit longer to just kind of edit it out and make it your own voice, because your own voice is basically what you need to do on LinkedIn. It's all about, your own branding and your own kind of marketing to it. So
Yeah,
yeah, I mean, it's all interesting at the end of the day. It's good to kind of note what people are using it for, and what actually works and what doesn't.
yeah, and look, I completely agree, and I think coming back to the point you made about sort of efficiency and quality being combined together, I think I agree with you. I think that's where a lot of people are falling down, right? Where they're just going way too far down the efficiency bucket and being like, oh, look, I can do like a million crap things, way faster now, instead of thinking, well, what's the one really good thing that you can do way faster that would actually be really useful? Not like, I can just spam out like 20 articles instead of one in the same time. Like that's not necessarily the right thing to be doing, for any use case, I guess. But you just reminded me, actually, it's kind of what concerns me, and I think coming back to your point around the awards as well, is obviously models like ChatGPT have been trained on like the sort of corpus of information that's just on the internet, and I'm sure you know as well as I do that a large proportion of the content that's out there is already created basically at quite a low level, just to either farm clicks, farm ad dollars. Like there's a lot of like pretty poor quality stuff. If you go back to the early days of SEO when everyone was, just building like link farms and stuff like that,
Oh,
that is
absolutely.
all that stuff's what they've been trained on. So is that a concern? Like, should we be worried that a proportion of the information that's actually in there is pretty poor to start with? Or do you not think that's too much of an issue?
I think the difference is that, with link farms compared to ChatGPT is that ChatGPT at least makes it different every single time. So not a single person is going to have the same kind of copy, same kind of content. It'll change each time.
Yeah, that's a good
But
point.
with link farms, it's just like same links on the same platforms, on the same recruitment or dodgy little websites. I mean, so you do know obviously that we struggle with quite a lot of spam, having 28 or to 30 awards, which
Mm,
means that we have a website for each of them, and we just get hammered with spam every single day. And we know that there's that one Russian Gmail account that keeps hitting our websites
yeah,
constantly over and over and over again. It's basically the same thing with those link farms back in the day. Like it's just like the same websites that you're having your ads and content move onto. Whereas now I think it's a bit nuanced. And if you are a good copywriter or editor or marketeer, you wouldn't just take what's given to you. You'd kind of adapt it for what you're actually trying to write for, the
yeah,
message that you're trying to get across, or what is that CTA that you want to have in mind for people to actually click on an action or make use of. So I think it is quite different, and that's sort of the nice thing. But also you've got to worry that if it's creating something different each time, how would you know who's using it for the same advantage, who's
mm,
using it and actually editing it down and making it a bit more nuanced, and who's not. So
yeah,
it's quite a difficult one. Like you never now. It's almost like the difference between I could have quit my job and decided to become a copywriter and then just use ChatGPT and just make a
yeah,
living off it. But I mean, it's just like how far is it going to go and how long can you use it for until it's not sustainable?
yeah,
Um, and I think that's the hard part. If you are a consultant or freelancer in the market today, it's just every other person who's kind of hired you to do work now thinks they can do it on their own using ChatGPT, and
yeah,
that's quite a
yeah.
scary part of it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting, hey, because I think like obviously we've as white collar, computer people, we've been pretty safe for quite a while. There's been a lot of disruption, but it hasn't disrupted us, right? Like we've been able to be like, oh
Yeah.
no, I still know stuff, special stuff that nobody else knows. Whereas now, with
Yeah.
chat, you're like, well, people can actually find that out like pretty quickly now. Like, are you worried about
Really
that? Like, I
quickly.
mean, if you were a copywriter, would you be worried now?
I mean, it depends on the type of copywriter you are. I think, I've had the privilege of meeting quite some really great copywriters in my day, and I just know then that what um, they're taking from Chat GPT is so different to what they're outputting. So
Mm,
we had we did this little exercise in the office, and we decided to have ChatGPT write an article about, award entries and the importance and benefits of it. And then we had a copywriter do exactly the same thing. She didn't know, but she knew she just needed to write this blog post for me. And I did it on ChatGPT. And then what we did was we took both copies of that article and we gave it over to our data analyst, who's not a words person at all,
yeah,
doesn't
okay.
know anything about words, kind of just is stuck in numbers and stuck in stats and analytics the whole day. And we thought, she doesn't understand our copywriter's handwriting because she doesn't obviously edit and read it through like I do each day. And we gave it over to her and we said, okay, so tell us which is our copywriter's article. And I could see her face
I
and
know, I
she
love the
just
the high
felt
pressure A/B test that just shoved on her
exactly.
there.
Absolutely. And then she was just looking at it thinking, oh my God, what am I? And as she actually started reading it, she realized, that's an interesting word, or that's exactly the way that we would actually put it for ourselves. And, she actually went through it and she realized, oh my God, this is so much better because this just sounds like it's been blurted out and copy and pasted from the internet.
Yeah,
And
right.
I mean, and that's the thing now with our copywriter and the copywriters that I've met. I just know you're absolutely safe if you're doing your job
Mm,
compared to if you're just taking something off ChatGPT and throwing it wherever you need to throw it, and hoping that it sticks. And at the end of the day, if you are a good copywriter, you would take the time to kind of make sure, actually, this could be a bit more nuanced for a particular audience. This could say a little bit extra in terms of making sure that people understand what the awards trust mark means for us, or, like those small nuances that we would always kind of market and make sure to market.
mm,
Um, a robot wouldn't be able to do that. It wouldn't know how
yeah.
to do that. It wouldn't know that it needs to do that. So I think, I wouldn't necessarily worry if you are a good copywriter and you do take the time to do that research and do take the time to actually go through what you need to go through. Because ChatGPT doesn't do that. It just takes a bunch of things off the internet. And sometimes you need to worry about the sources, because sometimes it'll get a source from somewhere that it doesn't pick it up from immediately where it had originally come from. It just takes the latest source that it kind of found. So yeah, it's quite interesting. But I think if you are a good copywriter, you shouldn't be worried.
Yeah. Look, I think that's actually really reassuring, and I like your line of thinking, because I'm sure you are as well. Like, I have a sort of strong feeling that will be how this plays out, and I think I mean, you will probably know better than me with your sort of being across all the different kind of awards and categories you guys run. But there is a real distinction from every client conversation I've ever had with people, particularly from working in agencies for a long time, where people get that there's only so much like tactical sort of tweaking that you can really do that will it'll get you so far, but it won't get you any further, and you end up just sort of plateauing at
Yeah,
a level,
yeah,
and that's fine for some people. But the where people really excel, and I think where agency teams and service providers really excel, is exactly what you just described. It's understanding how that all connects up to like real marketing, and how it connects up to having a brand and distinguishing yourself and understanding how people behave. And I feel like that side of things has had a real sort of taken a real battering over the past kind of 10 years or so, probably since the
yes,
growth of the advertising models online, because people were like, oh, you don't need to worry about that, just wang a load of money at Google and they'll sort it out for you. But
I'll figure it out. Yeah.
yeah, I feel like we've come kind of back around full circle now, which to me is quite reassuring, because I think the as you were saying earlier, it's the human element that makes you stand out or not, right? Like, not the amount of stuff that you can do.
Yes, no, exactly. It's it's always about quality over quantity, isn't it? It's like you realize that with everything in life. So, the thing is, I think back in the day when you could write sort of 50 blog posts quite quickly about nothing, or
Mm,
sort of take the same topic and reword it over and over and over and over again until you get some kind of good SEO, and you've got your articles kind of pointing in multiple different directions. I mean, it used to work that way back then, but not anymore. Like, it takes a bit more time and effort, and that's why I think SEO is even blown up the way that it does. And that's why you've got like these major conferences like Brighton SEO that comes
yeah,
up each year, and it's grown as they advertise it. It's grown from a pub in little old Brighton to this global phenomenon. So I mean, there must be something to it.
great conference, by the way, Brighton SEO. Well worth
Oh,
attending.
absolutely. Oh my gosh, absolutely. I went this year and last year, and this year was just absolutely mega. I mean,
Yeah,
the speakers were great. I mean, the kind of I went for a PPC advanced training course because I thought, with everything that's changing in the industry, I just want to make sure that I'm
yeah,
abreast of everything. I know exactly what's going on. And even those kind of courses were amazing. Funny enough, the speaker had won 4 awards at our UK Paid Media Awards. And I thought, okay, this is someone I want to obviously listen to. And it's a great person that they chose because she's an agency owner as well. So, yeah, absolutely. I mean, it just shows that SEO's come just so far, and
yeah.
it's such an important part of the industry that yeah, I guess not a lot of people, if you're not in the space, would know how much of hard work actually goes behind everything.
Yeah,
And,
you don't need to tell
you
me.
know,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So I think the best way to describe it, or the best way to put it, is, when your parents ask you what do you do, and they just don't understand it, you have to say, oh,
just,
it's marketing,
just computers.
it's
That's what I
Facebook
say.
ads,
Just mess
it's
around
what
on
you
the
see on
internet.
Facebook.
Yeah. I was
Yeah,
used to,
exactly.
I used to love explaining to my mum that, well, like back when we were doing more media, more paid media stuff, it'd be like, when you like go on any website and you just see the same advert everywhere. Like, I was like, that is what we do basically. It's just to hound you around the internet until you buy stuff. That was,
Yeah,
yeah, that was
exactly
it.
that. Oh my God. And that's the funniest thing, to explain it to a parent. I think that's what it's almost boiled down to.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
kind of what everybody kind of thinks. So it's awful. If you're not in the industry, you wouldn't know, but I think everybody else, that it's like, oh, you do Facebook and
yeah.
Twitter
Yeah,
all day.
just
It's like,
that's it, and
no.
give you a mildly dirty look as they wander off. That's usually it. Yeah, it's funny talking about
Uh,
SEO actually, because I've like, is having been doing it for many years now. Like, I've been really surprised, and maybe it's just, as you said, in virtue of just being so deep, I guess, in the industry, that I can no longer see the way back out, I suppose, at this point. But people, yeah, I still get asked about it now. We're still doing quite a lot of SEO work with Flowstakes. People just like don't get it still. And I was like, is it not really easy now? There's loads of like super easy tools and stuff, but people are like, yeah, but how does it work? And I was like, well, you just do what Google says basically, but not all the time. And then they were like, oh. And then their eyes glaze over a bit. But I was like, look, if you want us to do it for you, yes, we can. But yeah, look, it's interesting. I think but back to your point earlier. Actually, one of the most exciting things I've seen recently was the introduction of the testing of AI-driven, allegedly, search results from Bing and Google. Like, what do you think about that, Lee? Like, have you seen them? Have you had to play around with them? And like, do you know if there's going to be much of an impact on the search industry as yet? Given that it's still quite a small test, I guess, at the moment.
it might be a small test now, but I feel like it could blow up really quickly and very easily. I mean, once people start using it a little bit more and kind of getting um, I think with anything, it's just, how do people use it, and how are they wanting it to grow, and that literally goes in hand with anything that you kind of launch, or any kind of product or tool or software or anything that you kind of use these days.
Yeah,
It just depends how the user finds it and how you want it to grow, because at the end of the day, you can use it for something really small, like ChatGPT wouldn't have blown up if every single copywriter and marketer didn't just go on it and flood
yeah,
like literally just flood the system and use it as much as they could. I know a consultant that I know, when ChatGPT first came out, he thought like, oh my God, I've been paying someone to write blog posts for me, and they could only really do like 5 a month, and it costs X amount of money, which is
mm.
quite a bit. And he just sat the whole day thinking of every single blog post idea he could think of, and putting it in ChatGPT and
Brilliant.
saving it out, because he thought it was going to crash and it wasn't going to go anywhere. He honestly just thought, this is like such a great product. There's no way it's going to be free for very long. It's definitely going to crash. There's going to be an issue. There's going to be a bug. Something's going to happen. And he literally sat for like 4 to 5 hours that day, typing in everything that he could to try and save it out and edit at a later date, because it just saves you so much of time and money at a
Yeah, that's
later point.
great. Just really getting his
So
money's worth in there. No, that's
getting his money's worth,
good way
yeah.
to go.
No, exactly that. So I guess it just boils down to, how do people use it, how do we test it, and
Mm.
how do we want it to function for ourselves, basically.
Yeah, look, I think again, going back to a point you made earlier, just in connection with that, I think just to talk about, I suppose, where you see the next kind of opportunities coming in, the most interesting use cases I've seen are actually the most pedestrian ones. And maybe that's just says more about me than anything else. But for example, like, we use a tool called Loom quite a lot, which helps you like record videos and do quick
Okay.
screen shares. I think I've
Yes.
bombarded
Yeah.
you with a few of those, and they've
Yes.
introduced a really cool little, like, it's not really AI, but like they're calling it that. It's like the language model, but it summarizes what's in your video. It breaks it up into chapters for you, which is quite cool, based on where you're pausing or starting to talk about different things. And it also transcribes
Yes.
everything and then edits the transcription. So back to your point about things that take a load of time afterwards, I was like, that was one of the banes of my life, where I'm like, how do you give this video a really useful title? Like, do I need to actually put markers in where I've said something? Oh, I forgot when I said it. Like, obviously, I'm not writing it down, but that to me is a massive time saver and actually really helpful for the recipient, because then, as you know, I can talk quite extensively. So if they're like, oh, it's Stu actually talking, so he's talking about what we actually wanted to hear at like 5 minutes in, so they can just skip straight ahead. So that I thought was super useful. And there's one in ClickUp, which we use as well, which is our project management tool, where it just literally has a button that just says summarize. So if you're writing a description or a title or something and you're like, this isn't going to make any sense to anyone, you just press summarize and it just gives you a way shorter version. And I was like, this is great. It's like super boring but really useful at the same time.
Oh my gosh, that is a lifesaver.
Well, I know. I was like, this is just saving me hours already. Have you seen anything like that?
Not at all, because you know what, the other day I was so we do judge recordings basically, and judge recordings, we just want to find out those little nuanced bits about what a judge is looking for in an entry form, what they're looking for that stands out in terms of an entry, the way that people submit their entries, kind of what they're saying about budgets, what they're saying about their objectives, how they reach their objectives, what are the challenges, like those things the judges have to go through for every single entry form that they're judging. And obviously, you know, there's such a big variety of entries that come in. We always trying to find out from a judge what stands out, what are those nuanced pieces that actually stand out. And so I've been doing judge recordings recently, and just like recording the session, having a discussion with them, speaking about the entry forms, you know, what is helpful, what are the kind of big things that people always miss or make mistakes on, and what are those small things that entrance year on year, you know, some people have been entering our awards for about 5, 6, 7 years.
Yeah, right.
And it's basically, what do those people who've been entering year on year, how do they stand out a little bit more? What could they have tweaked a little bit more to make sure that they got an extra point for something? So it's you know, we need to cater not only to new entrants who don't understand the process at all, but to entrants who've been entering year on year on the same entry form, and how do they stand out? And so I've been sitting with judges, obviously trying to pick their brains about things like this. And the bane of my life is sitting afterwards and actually transcribing it all. So
Yeah,
thanks for actually mentioning that. Like,
there we go.
You saved my like a hell of a long time. I'm
You can have that one for free, Lee. Get in there. I'll send you the website. Yeah, but I'm the same. Being both very lazy and a huge fan of efficiency, like I'm constantly on the hunt for things that are like slightly faster, slightly easier, like, you know, anything like that. I'm like, brilliant. We'll just use that. Done.
Yeah, I mean, if you ever applied for a job with Bill Gates, he'd hire you immediately. What does he always say? He hires lazy people, not hard workers.
I know. I wish I'd known that when I was younger. I could have gotten the Microsoft gravy train earlier on. I think it's too late now.
Yeah, exactly that.
So talk to me about get back on the subject of awards. And I know you said that you're not you're not pushing AI too hard this year, but are there any areas where you or the team are actually kind of like, oh, there might be some really interesting stuff happening next year? Have you heard any kind of rumblings from either the UK or across the other markets that you guys operate in yet? Or are there any sort of you know, any exciting things that are sort of happening that you are kind of keen to see an award entry on?
Oh, absolutely. I think I've just come back, as I said, from Paris, from the Global Search Awards, and that was really good because we interviewed one of our judges, Matoko Hunt. She's really, really good, and she's been judging our awards for the longest time. And, you know, I asked her exactly the same thing, like, you know, what have you seen in 2023 in terms of trends, and what do you expect to find in 2024? And you know, she spoke a lot towards, you know, the search industry and all the policies kind of changing at the minute and how people are adapting to that. But what I found is that we've just finished our Global Social Media Awards. And what we realized is there's so much to do in terms of influencers. And I know everybody loves an influencer, but they really do push a product. They push tools. They push, you know, different kind of services in the industry. And as much as we hate to kind of acknowledge that, they are a big part of kind of marketing. I mean, you know, influencer marketing is an absolutely booming and growing industry at the moment. And I'm not talking about those guys who go to a restaurant and try to get a free meal to put it on
the free ice cream people. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's not those guys. It's the ones that actually kind of take on a product and are really passionate about it
Mm,
and then go on to push it. And how do they push it? What are they kind of using? What tools are they using? Um, what kind of messaging are they using that's different from others? And that's what I'm trying to also adopt in our marketing at the moment, because
yeah, okay.
with us, an event is not something that you can push right here and right now. It's not a product that you can sell right here and right now. It's not tangible. It's a day in the future, and that day in the future is so hard to kind of show people and navigate
Mm,
why they need to be there, why they need to be a part of an award ceremony. And that's what we're trying to, what I guess myself and the team are trying to really push at the moment, like that content creator look and feel of a video or look and feel of an awards night is what we're really trying to push. And I feel like the realm of being a content creator, or I wouldn't even say influencer, I would say content creation at the moment, and how content creators put out their thoughts and takes on products is way
mm,
more important and way more um something that we really need to look at doing, and look at onboarding for 2024 in the upcoming years, because
yeah,
I think
okay.
the influencer space has taken a bit of a negative turn, and I feel like a lot of people don't really want to be associated with it now. I think a lot of podcasts that I
Yeah,
listen to, people just who are in the influencer space just feel like, oh, I don't even want to tell someone I'm an influencer when someone asks me what job do you do. But
mm,
on the other hand, if you're a content creator, someone who's actually putting the work in, taking the hours in the evening from your full-time job to actually create the content that resonates with your audience, like that's, I think, coming up to be
yeah.
quite a big thing. And especially because we only have that day in the future to kind of push people towards it. We don't have a product to actually sell. So I think that for us is a big thing in terms of how we navigate our own content when we sit with our videographer. So whenever I go to an award ceremony, I make sure to interview judges, our sponsors, finalists, and then winners at the end of the evening. And then what are we doing with that content? How are we kind of adapting it for our social media channels? How are we adapting it for our ads? How are we making sure that it doesn't look heavily branded? Because I think that's the big thing at the point today, is that I don't want to see things that are heavily branded. No matter
Yeah.
if I'm a loyalist to, you know, Nike or Adidas or Givenchy, whatever it is. Even if I'm a loyalist and I've been buying from them for years, if I see an ad that's heavily branded, couldn't care less. If I see an athlete testing out a shoe, or a wannabe athlete who's just a content creator taking a run around a park, I want to see that. I want to know that if you trip and fall, it's still going to be a good shoe to wear.
Yeah, yeah,
So it's like
yeah.
it's just those kind of things that I honestly do feel is coming up quite big in the next few years. And it's how are we adapting content to make sure that it's, and I think if you go onto YouTube at the moment, if you go onto TikTok, if you go onto um Instagram, you'll definitely see the way the content has changed and how brands are stepping away from their heavily branded content and getting as many content creators on board. And that's kind of where I want to take it, the space that we're in at the moment, because we just, as I said, don't have that product to sell. We have a day in the future, and I
Yeah.
want to really get those kind of celebrations on the night to become part of our marketing strategy going forward.
Well, I think that's really interesting because yeah, I mean, not to sort of show my age too much, but like this is going back to the very old school days of when people did exactly as you said, people did just used to create content because it was fun. Like you remember back in the day when like YouTube first launched, and it was the halcyon days when like every super famous meme like ever was kind of created, probably over like a couple of years period. There were loads of people who were just like before the big advertising models and before it became a big sort of industry, just
Yeah.
doing random stuff, like throwing it on the internet. That was great, and I think I agree with you. I think it's very exciting to see people getting back to that more real stuff. I think
Yes.
the cynic in me says it feels a bit like sort of corporate MLM, but I'm trying to put that to one side
Yes.
just to be like, do you want
Yeah.
to like sell our stuff kind of for free? I'm like, nah, but, I don't know how I feel about that, but I think on the whole, I agree with you. I think it's great that like that more genuine sort of less, yeah, super shiny early 2000s-y
Mm.
super brandy stuff is going away, because I also am not a huge fan of that.
Yes, of course.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, following on from what you're saying as well about just sort of selling the experience, because I have recently been to a few events which I have not done for quite some time, because you couldn't go to any for a while. That was
Yes.
pretty rubbish.
Of
Um,
course.
they've been a real mixed bag. Like, it's been a proper game of two halves, where one was very well structured, but they'd run effectively. I won't say any names because I don't want to be unfair to to the people who were running them, but they basically ran like 3 events at the same time, which I thought was quite a canny sort of commercial move, because it felt very busy and there was 3 different things happening, all sort of in the same
Okay.
space.
All
But
right.
the sort of the impact of that on everyone, though, was you were kind of mingling in between the sessions with a pretty random group of people. Like, so there were people at the one that I was at, which was B2B focused. There were
Yes.
people at like I think there was like an affiliate thing going on, like a channel partner thing, and then there was
Right.
another like SaaS oriented thing at the same time. And you sort of wandering around, being like, "Oh, are you in? I haven't seen you at any of the things." Like, and they're like, "Oh no, I'm at the affiliate thing," and you're like, "Oh right, okay. Well, we don't really have much to talk about like right now, because we're doing completely different things basically today." So it was,
Yes. Oh
I could
gosh.
sort of see where they were going, but it was a bit odd basically. But the plus side was they were doing exactly what you were talking about, which was like loads of great content capture. They had like just cameras set up around the place. They were doing like sort of little vox poppy, like, what do you think about the thing that
Yes.
you're doing? So that side of it I thought was really awesome. It was just a bit of an odd, I think, very commercially driven sort of structure, probably because it's
Yes.
very expensive to put events back on now, and they weren't sure that they would fill it. But
Mixed bag. Yes, of course.
yeah, it was a weird
I've
one.
been to one like that. Yeah, I've also been to something like that before, where we I also won't mention names, but we obviously went to an event, thought, okay, sold us that there were going to be, thousands of people. Get there, we have a stand, and it seemed really nice. But then eventually you realize the location wasn't great, because a lot of students were eventually coming in. And then you
Okay.
realize, okay, this is not it. And most of the people that were there are just never going to buy from you, just trying to
Mm.
get freebies. And I think that's the irritating part, because you're
Like, you got a
kind of
branded
spending a lot of
pen
time.
going?
Yeah, do you have a notebook for me? I need one of those
You're
for
like, mate, it's
school.
not like 2015 anymore. Nobody's giving out branded moleskins anymore. Come on.
No, no, exactly right. I mean, you taking the time to send out staff to kind of be there the whole day and have proper conversations with people in the industry. And because of the location, you're getting like just 18-year-olds and 19-year-olds walking through the door, and you're just like, no, this is just not it.
Yeah,
So yeah, a bit of a difficult one, and that's why I think I have to commend Brighton SEO as much as I do, because even when I went this year, I know last year was a bit different because just recovering from COVID, not as many people went, but this year it was just exactly the right people in the right space. And I think
yeah,
that's the,
great.
the fantastic thing about it, is that there's so many really good people that are walking through those doors. The type of some of our sponsors are even there. They have stands, and they kind of don't sponsor the event really, but are just there putting out their name and their branding. And
Yeah,
every
that's
person
cool.
that you speak to is just someone who would be geared for our awards. And not only that, this past year for Global Search, we thought, what's something different that we can do? What's something out of the box that we can kind of start looking at? And we just thought, why don't we try and do a few of our ads in Spanish and German? Just because it is a global event, it is a global awards. And I had to reach out to judges, some of our judges, to kind of translate some of our copy over for us, just so I can make sure it's not Google translated, because you never know what
Yeah,
that really
yeah.
says.
Like,
And
mostly accurate.
yeah, they'll get it. And with the judges, they are fantastic, and they came to the board, they translated a whole bunch of stuff for me. And when I was at Brighton, I saw this company that literally just that's what they do. They kind of translate any kind of copy, articles, blog posts, headlines, ads, whatever it is, into any language across a multitude of dialects. And it was just,
Yeah, cool.
you just find like little small things that actually it's something that you don't realize is a a bit of an issue for you when you're doing it because there's no other solution. But then
Yeah.
when you get to like really good conferences, you find solutions so quickly because you didn't realize this product was out there until you attend one of these awards, because something like translating um copy. It's not something that I'd go into Google for. I wouldn't think, oh, where can I go and change, either I'd want to do it on Google Translate, or I have to look for a
Mm.
product, which is going to cost a ton of money. And that's why I went to our judges. But then something where it's just like a few lines of copy, you can build a relationship with another agency and organization. And the best part about it is I could tell them, it would be great for you to kind of translate one or two sentences for me. And just by the way, this is a really great tool. Have you decided to enter into one of our awards? So the conversation just flows
Yeah,
that much
great.
easier. So yeah, it's really nice. But yeah, I think you struggle in Australia with a few conferences, don't you? Anyway.
Yeah, certainly in the space that I'm in at the moment, there just seems to be a bit of a dearth of stuff, and like, I mean, I'm not to whinge on about this, like, I won't complain too much, but the minute that anyone gets a sniff that I might be some kind of service provider or agency, they're like just throwing sponsorship at me instead of being like, oh, you might actually have something useful to say and you could just attend. So, I'm a bit bitter about that already, but I was like, look,
We've actually noticed like there's such a boom in the APAC region, and especially Australia and New Zealand. Like we see, one of our awards, the APAC Search Awards, we don't really see that there's that people struggle to enter. People see these awards and think, finally there's something for us to
yeah,
enter into and to celebrate our work. And I think that's what we've definitely picked up on. Our sales manager Steph also has mentioned that it's the easiest conversations that she ever has. It's people who just want to enter, just need to understand a couple things, but are so keen for it. And yeah, I think I'll mention it to you at some point, but we do have a surprise up our sleeve. We thought that
sure,
there's
hello,
such a boom in the industry. Yeah, there's such a growing industry and such interest in this industry that we feel like we need to do a lot more. So,
yeah,
I mean,
great.
a little something up our sleeve, but I'll get to it. That little
Well, I mean,
surprise
it's
is
a
down the corner.
tantalising surprise at the end of that. I like it. No, look, I agree with you. I was really surprised. Like 'cause when I first came down here, I was still doing a lot of SEO and analytics, and I was really surprised
Yes.
at the lack of awards or even just kind of recognition for those areas specifically, and just any decent awards down here. Like there's a kind of a group of kind of companies that do run some events, but it's nowhere near like what's happening across sort of Europe or the UK. And it's, as you've said, it's not for a
Oh,
lack of people doing really good work or that people don't want it. People are happy to
yeah,
enter. There just wasn't
absolutely.
anything happening. So I'm super excited that you guys are sort of making some moves down here. I'm very interested to see what's going to happen and obviously be involved later in the year, which would be awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah, look. So I think just being conscious of your time, Lee, as well. Let me give you a bit of a roundup question because we've covered a lot of ground, which I think has been
yeah.
super interesting. So, if you were going to make your one big prediction or one big concern about the general AI chat at the moment, what is that? Is it an opportunity or something you're excited about or a concern? Like what's your prediction for the rest of this year?
Oh, I think my prediction is that it is the biggest opportunity that the marketing industry has been able to cling on to. I think there's so much that's happening in AI at the moment, and the fact that we can use it to our advantage and use it to really bolster the kind of marketing space and kind of show that that it's a working industry, and that we can build and use tools to really navigate and to uphold kind of the industry standards and kind of make sure that we're doing things quicker, easier, smarter. I think there's so much of potential for opportunity in this space. So I'm really excited to see where it grows and how it grows. Because I mean, why not use it to your advantage while you can? I think the other thing is that even though we're worried about it stealing our jobs and all of this that's come out, at the end of the day, it's how are you using it to actually make sure that that doesn't happen? How are you using it to make sure that you're cutting down on time doing the
Mm,
research and the hours worth of fact checking? It's just making sure that you're using it to your advantage. And I just feel there's a ton of opportunity. It just, everyone from a copywriter all the way down to a paid media person, all the way across to a designer could could use ChatGPT and any kind of AI tools to make their lives easier. I mean, there's a lot more that's come out in terms of presentation tools as well, and it's something I definitely want to take a look into. And I just feel that with AI, it's just making our lives that much easier. And one thing our managing director has been really putting forward to us, Helen, she keeps saying we need to work smarter and not harder. And I just feel that AI is definitely the way to go in terms of that. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm really excited to see what comes out of it.
Oh, that's cool. I think that's great to hear. And like, you speak in my language. Like, to be honest, like our whole business is built around that exact proposition. It's like just kind of do stuff faster and more efficiently
Yeah,
without sacrificing the quality that you need, right? Like, which is where
of
I
course.
completely agree with you. I see all the opportunities in that space, and I think it's yeah. Going back to the point you made earlier, I think if you're concerned and you don't know how to deal with it, that is exactly where you should be focusing. Like, how do you save time? How do you become better at your job by like leveraging all these free or at the
Of
moment very
course.
cheap tools that are at your fingertips?
Yeah,
Don't need to tell anyone, do you? You just need to like get on with it and look
yeah,
awesome,
yeah,
and then you're laughing, aren't you?
yeah.
Oh, I love it.
Exactly that.
I love it. I think that's a great point to round off on, Lee. So look, thanks very much for coming on and having a chat. It's been an absolute pleasure, and I think we covered some super interesting areas there. So yeah, thanks for joining, Lee.
Yeah, no stress. Always great to chat to you, Stu. I think the last time we were just chatting for hours on end. So I'm so sorry I have to dash off, but this has been
All
really great.
good.
Always great. Yeah, always great chatting to you. So can't wait for the next one.
Thanks very much for listening. You have reached the end of the show. There were loads of interesting takeaways from that, to be honest. But the key thing for me was that we're not going to see any sort of real awards won by AI this year. I think I agree with Lee that we're not really seeing the real impact yet, but we are feeling the waves in the digital industry everywhere. Hopefully, we will see some next year. I'm pretty excited to see what the future will hold in that regard. If you would like to hear more about who we are and what we do, please head over to our website, theflowstate.io.